Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio, and I'm here with my friend and co-author, Nancy Saxton-Lopez. And this is a program that we do every Thursday from 1 o'clock to about 1:30. What am I saying? From 6 o'clock p.m. to about 6:30 p.m. I need to wake up. And it is a program that is built upon the pet loss support groups that we facilitated for many, many years and continue to facilitate that. And it's also built on the book that we wrote that's called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And a lot of what we do in this program, we'll be doing it today, is we read stories that we receive from audience members, and then we give some commentary on them. And so if you'd like to correspond with us, and you can send us a story, or you can suggest a topic, or you can suggest a guest, you can write to me at kenddv@gmail.com and Nancy Saxton-Lopez at nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. And all the information I'm sharing in the beginning here is available in the description that is attached to either the live program or the rebroadcast or the audio podcast. You can support our work in a number of ways. One of the ways you can do that is actually fairly new, and that's by subscribing to our Substack, where we post correspondence from our listeners and also the beautiful pictures that they send us of their animal companions. You can give a gift through Venmo or PayPal, or a monthly subscription on Spotify. Also, we'd like you to know that this program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society in Springfield, Massachusetts. And Dakin is a multi-service shelter and adoption center. They do all kinds of things in addition to that, and they provide a lot of emphasis on trying to help people with the bonds that we have with our companion animals. And one of their programs is a cost-free pet loss Zoom support group that I facilitate. It's on the second Tuesday of every month, and it runs from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And there's an RSVP link for the next one that you can access through a link in the description. And the next one is going to be on April 9th. And so it's coming right up in a couple of weeks. And people join from all over the place, from all over the country and all over the world. And I'd like to make sure that you understand you can join from all over the world, because we had somebody join from another country last time, and they were concerned about maybe it wasn't okay. And I want to reassure you that if you can reach us, if you can be with us at your time zone, and it's fine with us for you to join us. Also, please consider subscribing on YouTube if you haven't already done that. It really helps to alert the algorithm to the value of the program, and it helps people who are looking for support with their own pet loss it brings this program to their attention. So if you haven't already, it would really be helpful if you would subscribe on YouTube. And also if you make a comment or you do a thumbs up on YouTube or on Facebook or on Apple or wherever you else may be getting the program, that can be really helpful. And we also like you to know that we have an affiliate relationship with a business that's called Bereave. And Bereave makes these beautifully crafted granite plaques that can have the image of your beloved deceased pet and whatever language you'd like on it, the name of your pet and their dates. And it's the kind of thing that you might put in a memorial spot outside, or maybe in a place inside where you keep mementos. And I believe Nancy's holding the example that they gave us. We wanted to make sure that it was really what they represented. It's very nice. It's very solid and well crafted. And if you do purchase one of their plaques, you're also giving a measure of support to our program.
Yeah, it's a really, really beautiful plaque. It's very heavy. It's very solid. The etchings are really beautiful.
So we're going to start today with a letter from Alyssa. And
we believe that Alyssa is hopefully listening to us as well as our next person.
It was a little bit of a difficult time in the beginning. I was a little flummoxed because we got a note that wasn't connecting on Facebook, but then I was able to, I think, get it connected on Facebook too. So that's good. So Alyssa is writing about her beloved dog, Pompom. And
Oh,
here is Pompom, a very cute little guy. And
sweet boy.
let me read Alyssa's note. Hi, Ken and Nancy. I found your podcast 4 days after my soul dog died. She was taken by kidney
She.
failure. I was with her for the whole 5 days. When she was diagnosed, taking care of her feeding tube and giving her medication along with my sister. I had to go home one day from my other house to be with my boyfriend that night. I was already experiencing anticipatory grief, and I cried the whole night. When I went back to our family home where she is confined, I didn't know that she was getting worse. She couldn't drink water anymore and couldn't stand up. But when I was lying down, not far from her bed, she started to move her head and she started to move beside me with all her strength, just so she could lay beside me. I started talking to her and I was beginning to say goodbye to her. I was in denial, hugged and cried, didn't want to because I didn't want her to feel I was sad, but I couldn't help it. I cried after 3 minutes. She was twitching and she was having trouble breathing. I was there when she died, and I could hear that she was in pain and trying to breathe. I asked my brother to be with me. I was so scared I couldn't even look at her. I can't even say goodbye because I don't want that image in my head. And I can hear her having trouble breathing. She died, and I was crying so loud. I felt guilty because I cried so loud, and I was screaming. And in her last moment, I was in pain, and she was in pain, and it was not an easy passing. Pom Pom was 11 years old. Until now, I can't look at her picture because it's taking me back to the moment when she couldn't breathe. I hope you can talk about someone like me who witnessed their pet's hard passing and someone like me who can't look at her picture. I hope I get better someday and I can look at her picture and only think about our happy memories. I was looking for a sign that she's okay after her passing. I looked at my Instagram because it had throwback pictures from when you posted. And when I looked at my post back in March 12th, 2016, it was a photo of my father. So I guess that photo popped up. And I think that's a sign that I was looking for. My dad died in 2018, and he loves Pom Pom. I think that photo was a sign that they're together, that she's with my dad. I thank God that I found your podcast. It's helping me to cope a lot. I uploaded a picture of her. She always smiles whenever she sees me, or when we're together. She's a photogenic dog that loves the camera. Please feel free to post her photo because I also want to share with the world how beautiful she is. All the love, Alyssa. And Alyssa's writing from the Philippines. She lets us know.
You know, it's so incredibly difficult at death of any type, right? Making the euthanasia plans and being there at euthanasia, or just being with your animal, your beautiful animal, her beautiful little Pom Pom, during the process of her death. And sometimes, like she says, it's not easy. It's not calm and it's not peaceful.
There were some moments where Abigail was dying where I was just crying really loudly. I mean, I was really upset. And just like Alyssa, I regret that I was doing that while she was still there. Now, my husband tells me, and I'll share this with Alyssa, that Abigail was already so far
That's right.
into the dying process that she wasn't really
Conscious.
focused outwardly. She was just experiencing what you experience when you're transitioning.
Exactly.
And I believe that because it wasn't like she was paying attention to me. She was
She was
basically
actively dying.
she was convulsing
Right.
basically. And it sounds like that's what was happening with Pom Pom, that Pom Pom was not breathing well, was in agonal breathing. You know,
Yeah,
when
right.
you can't breathe, you're taking a breath just periodically, but not normally. So I want to share that with Alyssa that,
Yeah.
sometimes it certainly happened to me, and I didn't feel great about it. But then I feel like, we're all human and we have emotions, and Sometimes we lose it when we're losing a
Of course we would. It's devastating. And especially during a period of time that Alyssa was with her pom-pom. It was not easy. I mean, her pom-pom was suffering and she was going through all of these stages, like you said, like
Mhm.
Abigail was, and it's so incredibly, you can't breathe. You're crying. You can't understand, or you believe that your dog is in such pain
Yeah.
and such agony, and that makes it so much harder. And yes, the problem with any of death is you remember the last moments and it's seared into your brain.
Yeah, it's the image just keeps coming back. And as Alyssa says, it's hard. It can be very hard to look at pictures because it brings it back. I mean, that's something that eases eventually. It's an individual thing, though, as we've talked about. We're not,
Yes.
who knows how long that will take. It still comes back now and then for sure. And so one of the things that I like about Alyssa's note is how graphic the way she lays this out is. It is just agonizing, and her language conveys that, and the confusion that's going on, and the I can't even look at them kind of thing, because that they're struggling, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Very, very painful.
Needing to be there, but Alyssa, that's the gift. Even though it's so horrible, but little Pom Pom, your little girl, had you with her through
Yep.
that transition. And Pom Pom loved you so much, and you loved her so much. And it
And
was
you were
really,
there. You were there, and I'm sure that mattered more probably
yes,
than anything, that she knew you were there, you were holding her, you were connected.
kissing
So
her,
hard.
being with her. And yes, I don't think that your demonstrative crying and sobbing, she was in that active phase of dying. And
Yeah.
so we remember, they hold no malice, they don't judge, they're not
Yeah.
critical. It was her process of death, and you were there until the end.
And
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 that's
what we
important.
what yeah, that's important. And what we know about when a person or an animal is dying, they're focused more inward than they are externally. They're engaged in the transition. They're not so much focused on what's going on around them, because they're experiencing such an intense, they're leaving this world, and that's an internal process. That's not an externally focused process. And so we have a comment from Grace Under Fire. Grace says, "My heart breaks for you, Alyssa. Those final moments are so difficult. I wish you peace and comfort during
Yes.
this grief journey." And I
Thank you.
think Alyssa may be with us this
Mhm.
evening. So if she is, I hope that
Although
helps.
she'd also got a sign, and we're going to talk about this later too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
that dad popped up, right?
yeah. She got a
And did a
sign, and she
picture.
also got another sign later, because we've had a little bit more correspondence with her, and we'll go back to this. Yeah.
Right. So thank you, Alyssa. I mean, I know this was a hard thing to write, but I think we think it's a really important thing for you to write. So I'm going to talk. I picked this personally to
Mhm.
share, because it's Laura with her pug, and everyone knows that I'm the pug lady, or had been the pug lady. Um, and so it's a story of her losing her Mozzie, her
Here's
little
Mozzie.
baby. And, we have gone back and forth with Laura a lot also. Um, so we have a few things that a few emails we can share, but this is the first one. Hello. First of all, thank you so much for your podcast. I lost my best boy, a pug named Mozzie, on 3/7/2024. His loss is the most profound pain I've ever experienced as an adult. I got him in college and he walked beside me through 10 very formative years. He welcomed my human babies home and really helped raise them. He was woven into every aspect of our lives. He was the truest friend. I feel like he was sent to me. He was the best. My boy. I screamed and cried for days after he died, in a weird fog, gasping for air and searching for him in every room, talking to him, begging him to come back, not eating and not drinking. Then it suddenly stopped. I still cry every day, but I'm not at all where I was. I had to get it together for my kids, but I feel guilty for moving on, for realizing he's really gone, for moving forward. Every day forward seems like I'm moving further away from him, and it breaks my heart. I want to stay in my despair, to be closer to him, to stay with him. Am I crazy? No, you're not. Is this something that you've already discussed? We will. If so, can you point me towards the podcast episode? Otherwise, I would greatly appreciate your discussion on this part of the grieving process. Or if I'm nuts. Thank you so much for your work. Now, Ken and I went back and forth with Laura. And so I'm going to read one of her responses to Ken. And so she says, thank you, Ken. Although looking back at pictures, it's really quite striking how much he declined. Odd that it was not something we could see in the moment, but is so obvious after his passing. I understand that completely. Yep. I continue to listen to the podcast episodes nearly every day, and I find solace in their content. Their content. I've heard you and Nancy mention a few times moments when you've known your past companions were present with you, that you had experiences you can't quite explain, and I was wondering if you two would dedicate an episode to expand on your experiences. I've heard you reference an experience where your son indicated he saw your past cat, among other brief mentions of, I believe you said you felt your dog with you and when you were running. What did those moments look like? How did you know? I see my Mozzie everywhere. It's almost as if he's really with me. I know exactly what he would look like or what he'd be doing in every given moment, so my brain puts him there. I know he's not, but I can see him. If you know what I mean, is that maybe him as spirit? Really, his passing has brought into question a lot of my belief systems. And so I'm just very curious to hear from others. I tell myself he is here, I just can't see him. But it's like I have to convince myself of it as desperately as I want to believe it. Anyway, thanks again for all your work. Okay, so let's...
So I want to just respond to the first part. And what I wrote back to Laura is we haven't done an episode entirely on that, but we talk about it a lot because a lot of people say something. They either say that or they say something very similar to that. And it's very, very common for people to feel like I want to hold on to the pain.
Yes,
because it connects me to them.
Exactly. Or I'm betraying him or her.
If I don't better, I'm betraying them. So I know that Laura has listened to more episodes and heard that. She's heard that in other conversations that we've had. So I'm glad that's something that she's found kind of as a theme. And I also, one of the reasons that we put these two stories together is Alyssa wrote later that, let me see if I can find this in her. Oh yeah. She says, I know this pain will be with me for a long time. She's talking about the loss of her Pompom. I also have an update about signs that she was trying to connect with me through her granddaughter, Kim. They were best friends. So Mozzie had a granddaughter, not Mozzie, I'm sorry. Pompom has a granddaughter named Kim. I've noticed that Kim has been imitating some of Pompom's habits, like biting a stuffed animal until she fell asleep, even sleeping on the spot where Pompom used to sleep in our condo. I think Pompom was teaching her ways on how to take care of me through Kim. So
very interesting.
And so there are so many ways that our animals show up. And when I was listening to you read Laura's story, I'm thinking, everything we've been taught for the most part, in our society, for the most part, is that if we feel their presence or we see them, we should probably disregard that. That
No, no, no,
that
no.
like that's like just imagination or
You're not
daydream.
crazy.
But if you allow yourself to see without judgment, I think you will have very similar experiences to what Laura's describing. And I, we'll try to cover some of these stories somewhat quickly. So when my son was little, we had a cat. His name was Reginald, and Reginald was a character. He was always following us around, and he was all over. He was the sweetest little cat. And when he died, we buried him in front of a grove of pine trees in our home in New Jersey. And one day, Eric, who was very little, said he saw Reggie walking across in front of the pine trees, and he knew who Reggie was, and I don't think he knew where he had been buried, though. I think that was the thing, that he didn't. I'm trying to remember the details, but he saw him walking right near where he had been buried, and he was very little at the time. He was very little. He was like 2 or 3. And so that was something his mom and I were just really.
Well, but children can take in that
Yeah,
much
they can see
more
all
than
kinds of
adults,
things.
right?
And
They see the
and I'll
spirit.
just say, I mean, I have seen my grandfather. I've had communication from my grandmother. I have regularly seen Abigail running beside my dog, Hildy, as though she was playing with her. And when I say see, and I think Laura's sort of
Yeah,
describing this,
this is what she's talking about,
not
right?
seeing them exactly the way they are when they're in life, but seeing them nonetheless, sort of up a little higher off the ground, just kind of. I mean, if you hear this and you think I'm insane,
Ken, you're not insane.
then then that's your issue, not mine, because
There's no
I
insanity.
accept what I experience. And I've seen Isabel. I've seen Isabel less frequently than I've seen Abigail, and to me, they're around. They're around all the time,
Yeah.
and I feel like in some ways, what I was seeing was Abigail welcoming Hildy into our
Oh, that
family.
was nice.
That's the way it felt to
Yeah.
me. So those are a couple of my experience, but I see things like that with some regularity, and they're just comforting. They're like, of course,
Yeah, now
everybody
you
who you
know that
love,
they're around, right? Their
everybody
spirit.
you love has some kind of connection to you, and there are many. I think I wrote this. I might have written this to Alyssa as well. I think there's a lot that we really don't know, and so there's we don't have exactly the words to describe, and we also don't have clarity about what some of these things are and mean. But we shouldn't deny what we
No.
experience.
It's important to take them in. I talk with a lot of people who have gone through privately, who have gone through the deaths of their animals, and they're always saying, is this a sign? Is this a sign? And yeah, it's a sign. And you can take it as a sign. And when Ken and I were talking before, doing this podcast tonight, I had a very clear experience with my heart dog, Hank. And Hank was a black pug. I had black pugs at the end of the pug regime.
But many people.
And it was a dynasty, right? So, but a year after he died, and I was in bed, and I was going to get up, and I was laying on my side, my left side, and I felt something, and I looked up, and he was walking up my side.
Uh-huh.
And he was young, and he was not ill anymore, and he was very sweet, and he put his head down to me, and then he disappeared. But I saw him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not crazy either.
Yeah.
But I did see him and feel him. And that was so important to me
Yeah.
because he was my soul dog. I love
Yeah.
all of my dogs, but he was very special to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so these things do happen.
They happen, and we take them for what they are, and we make whatever meaning we want to out of them. But I think it's very important to not judge ourselves when we have these kinds of extra normal experiences. And if they feel good, which they usually do,
Yeah.
then what could possibly be bad about that?
Yeah.
That's just a good thing. I mean, we tell the story in the book. If you've read the pet loss book, this is the story that always comes to mind for me, is that we had a person come to the group, and they said that their their two teenage kids would always do their homework at the kitchen table, and their boxer had recently died, and the two, I believe, teenagers were at the kitchen table, and you know this story, Nancy. And they heard scratching the back door, and they had a fenced in yard, and they were sort of initially just, oh, that's the dog trying to get in. And then they realized that their dog was no longer alive. So they went and they opened the door, and on the little stoop right outside the back door was a very muddy rubber toy that the dog had hidden somewhere along. They hadn't seen it for a very, very long time. They didn't even know it was still out there. And there it was, right on the step. And talk about a sign. And there was no, it was an enclosed backyard. And so to them, that was very reassuring. And
those
I
are
would
the
experience the same way.
There could be different signs, like different,
Yep.
like ladybugs or some kind of cardinals. I mean, there's if you really read into it, or sometimes money or feathers. I mean, or just numbers coming up, or a name coming up, those kind of things, or music,
Or
a
lights.
song that comes up.
One of the stories we heard from, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but his cat had recently died, and he came home, and the lights were like flickering on.
Oh, Matt.
Okay, yeah. And so, I mean, we hear these stories all the time, and who's to say
we'll take it?
Yeah, exactly. That's the way you want to look at it. Why
We
not?
want our babies around us, even if
Yeah.
there's, spirit.
Yeah, and sometimes people will smell things that, like, they'll
Smell or
the scent.
feel,
Yeah,
see,
or they'll feel them, So,
dreams.
yeah. Oh, yeah, and dreams a lot. Absolutely. But this whole idea that I think Laura said, it makes her question for spirituality, or
Yeah.
the way I look at that is it to me, it kind of enlarges my spirituality. That's kind of the way I think about it. Like,
you open up to a universe in
yeah,
a
like,
different way.
okay, so there's more, that as long as you have a sense of uncertainty and a willingness to be awestruck, to me, it's like, okay, well, there's a lot more that I don't understand, and that's really amazing. There's a lot of mysteries in life, and we encounter more and more of them, I think.
So I just want to share one thing too with Laura, since I'm, all the pugs. So when she had written me back and said, I loved all your teapots.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent Ken a picture
Yep.
of all the teapots
Yep.
in my living room.
It's a beautiful picture.
Do you have it?
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted Laura to see it because, she had mentioned it. And
you sent it to me on a text, I think.
Yeah. No, I think I did it in an email. But Laura, listen, your little beautiful, beautiful, little boy.
I got it. Wait, I guess, did I get it? Oh, do I have it?
So we also, while Ken's looking, we do really appreciate, Laura, you writing in, and Alyssa, you writing in. It's really important to do that. I think it's cathartic. And I also think that it's important to share it. And thank you for letting us share this, on the podcast. So, but you can't print it. We can hold it for another time, but I
Yeah,
do
we'll show
have
it. We'll show it next time because I can't
can't.
find it. Um,
Yeah, it was this morning.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, we'll come back to it though. And we do have a lot of messages, so let's take a
okay, let's look at the
look at these
messages.
messages. Let's see. We have. I went through almost the same thing Alyssa went through
Oh,
with
it's Rusty.
Rusty.
Yeah.
Leslie is saying that.
Mhm. Thank
Mozzie's mom is saying, hi, thank you so much. Alyssa is here. She's saying, hi, Ken and Nancy, I'm here. Thank you. Grace under fire, crying right now, but you guys are helping so much with the process. Love, Alyssa from the Philippines.
Thank you,
And
Rusty.
Stacy, try not to second guess the signs. I keep finding
Yes.
my dog's whiskers weeks after I put him to rest, and I vacuum thoroughly. I like that one. Stay.
Beautiful.
He's saying
Beautiful,
hi.
Stacy.
He's saying hi. It's great. Grace under fire. I truly believe our animals are still present after their passing. My Gizmo, I love that name.
Oh,
Has
I love that name
signs.
too.
These signs are proof that our bond with our soul companion is still unbreakable.
Absolutely.
Mozzie's mom, haha, that's absolutely beautiful, Ken. Thanks for sharing. Let's see. Mozzie's mom, oh my gosh, Nancy, incredible. I hope for the same from Moz.
Yeah.
It says, why is it scary if it's a human ghost, but animals, it's okay? That's me.
That was
I don't
good.
think it's scary either way, as long as
Wow.
the ghost isn't scary, isn't trying to scare you. They see that's a great point. I mean, shouldn't
They
it?
never die, right? And
Yeah,
they become part of us. What
yeah,
they are internalized.
yeah.
Right?
So Stacy's saying energy never dies, and
Yes.
our pets have such amazing energy. Mozzie's mom says, "Thank you, Nancy." Alyssa says, "Thank you, Nancy and Ken. See you again next Thursday." So yeah, so we'll close with that, and I will
Thank you
find
for all your
Nancy's
comments, everyone.
picture of her
My
pug
teapots.
memorial. It's quite something, actually.
Ken loved it.
I did, yes. And I misplaced it apparently. And anyway, so please, if you find this program useful, please do subscribe. That's always helpful in terms of getting the program more in front of more people who may benefit from it. And thank you,
Thank you.
Alyssa and Laura, for sharing. And thank you for those who gave us those really nice comments and were with us as well. And thank you, Nancy. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Always, Ken.